But, what we very quickly realized after running the business for about 6-7 months is that, hey, this is not going to work. I mean, Amazon is going to kill us any day. You will always make mistakes, right? But the question is, you make them less and correct much, much quicker and faster. The greatest victory is where there is no battle. Probably one of the most important things is about being capital efficient and really, really take care of your cash, because that gives you optionality. The fact that we were able to pivot and all those things is because we were so capital efficient and we have the cash. One of the ads, we still don't know why it works so well. They were crazy. Like, it's still the highest performing ad ever, was cupcakes. So the ad was just an image of beautiful images of cupcakes. 10 years in the business, nothing's outperformed those ads.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I call it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit. Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Do you think the Product Market Fit show has product market fit? Because if you do, then there's something you just have to do. You have to take out your phone. You have to leave the show 5 stars. It lets us reach more founders, and it lets us get better guests. Thank you.
Saurav, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Cool, man. So listen, I mean, you built a hugely successful business. You exited for like 170 million. You grew it to over $30 million in revenue, and you raised venture, but you raised actually less than you generated in revenue, which is like a huge kind of milestone, something that very few companies actually end up doing. So you had one of those big successes that everybody kind of dreams about. Take us back. Like, let's start, at the beginning of Perkbox. Like, first of all, what time frame are we talking about, and what was like the original idea?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Pablo. And we're going way back now. So yeah, it's we started in 2011, Perkbox, in a very different iteration. It was called a company called Huddle Buy, as in huddle and buy. And our thesis was that Groupon was all the rage, and we felt that that collective buying model would suit businesses really well, because obviously with startups, small businesses, they buy so many things, they spend so much money, but there was no collective buying model for businesses. So the thesis of Huddle Buy, which is the first iteration of Perkbox, was that, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if these businesses came together and bought the products and services that they needed? And so that was the first iteration. We're talking about like almost March 2011. So we're going way back when.
And where are you based at this point?
We're based in London. So me and we have 3 of us, 2 co-founders, my 2 other co-founders were all based in London. We all came from a combination of tech and, companies like Yahoo, Apple. So we raised the seed round pretty quickly, thanks to our background from angels, some very well-known European tech angels. So we raised around pretty quickly.
How much did you raise?
That was about, back then it was 350,000 pounds. So that's about $500,000.
Okay, so it's small. I mean, this is the old seed rounds where a lot of people don't know. It wasn't $5 million back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't $5 million, and the notion of seed, pre-seed, like, I don't even know there was a term called pre-seed back in the day. So
no,
nowadays,
I think seed was pre-seed. Like, that was the whole idea, was like, you seed to do something with. Then it was like, no, we got pre-seed. In the future, it's going to be pre-seed, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how it all began.
And what were your backgrounds that helped you kind of get that round off the ground with just like an idea?
Yeah, so there were 3 kind of co-founders. So my background was, I was at Yahoo, but then I had done a bunch of 2 other Valley-based tech companies as a part of their early growth teams, and they had exited. So I had come from big company tech. My background was more biz dev, commercial. My other co-founder was actually ex-Apple. He led the Apple online team at one point when it was just ramping up online sales. We were talking about in 2007 to 2011. He was doing that. And then my third co-founder was a very, very strong digital marketeer who was, again, ex-Yahoo, ex-Microsoft. So, I think the brands helped to get us.
Yes, the big logos always help. That's right.
The big logos. And some startup experience helped to get us the round going very quickly from some very, very good angel investors.
And was 2011, I'm thinking like that was very much like in that mobile, like right after iPhone, couple years after iPhone era. Was the idea to build like a mobile app? Was that kind of the original thinking?
Actually, mobile app was not really top of mind. It's really web was the focus primarily, but the whole, it was not just the mobile was taking off. Collective buying was taking off as well. So you had all types of iterations of Groupon going around. Groupon for this, Groupon for that. So that was the real kind of thesis around, hey, let's focus on B2B and SME. But what was different then is that, to be honest with you, after the angel round, we had a very hard time raising any VC then to top up because no one wanted to touch SME back then. So SMB was kind of a dirty word, right? The SMB businesses really did not make money. SaaS for SMBs was just not there yet, especially the micro SMEs and all that. So once we raised our angel, we did say, hey, let's top it up with a few $500,000 more. But no VC wanted to touch us back then because SMBs was just, no one did SMB SaaS businesses back then.
And what did you see? Like, it's one thing to say, Groupon successful, where could we use it? But like SMB isn't a natural place to go. Did you know something about SMB, or like why did you guys' minds go there in terms of collective buying?
Well, we had worked in startups and and it was a big pain point, right? There was no startups, and Mike, one of my co-founders, was also consulting he had left Microsoft and he was consulting to SMBs, and he was really seeing all the day-to-day pain points that I had worked in a startup, and I was like, wow, this is really, really painful. Everything is 3 times more expensive. I don't get my hotel rates. I don't get anything that I used to get as a big corporate. So, it was pretty...
Right, you'd seen both sides. Like because I'm also from startups, but I guess I never saw like the fairyland of like, the Apple, the Yahoo.
Yeah, exactly. So we had seen the corporate world and we had seen the startup world. And, you're fighting, and, and you see a whole different world once you get out of the big, the bubble of the big brand startups. It's just a very different world. So we felt that pain, and having been on both sides, we thought, hey, this could work really, really well. And the cost differential was big time. And then you see that you had our old traditional versions of buying groups like procurement teams, and there were buying groups that were completely offline that were already in place. So we're not trying to like do something that's not been done before. Everybody knows, the economies of scale, and we were just trying to make
Costco, like Costco's history is also a little bit like that now.
Exactly. So Costco, obviously they have more of a kind of, it's a Costco card, but effectively, exactly the Costco model. If you apply it to B2B, that's exactly what we're trying to do with a business. But aim it more towards, products they buy or services and so on and so forth.
And so how do you start? Like, it's a little bit, well, it seems more complicated in SMB. Like in consumer, you would go after something really hot that everybody wants and just discount it like crazy. And I would think that's how you kind of get early demand. Like, what did you guys do?
Yeah, so we followed that classic consumer playbook. So we started looking at, things that businesses buy at a high frequency. So it could be things like, printer cartridges or, hardware, accessories, keyboard, this, that. But, what we very quickly realized after running the business for about 6-7 months is that, hey, this is not gonna work. Amazon is gonna kill us any day because you make 200 printers you sell and one comes back, there's no margin. So it was unfortunately learned through a lot of pain that this model is not gonna work as a collective buying model. So that's when we said, hey, and we were actually very good at doing PR. So we were kind of punching above our weight in terms of newspaper articles and visibility and this.
Did you have but in those 6-7 months, did you transact? Like you actually had like people buying stuff?
Yeah, we're buying stuff, we were shipping stuff, but our worst nightmare was that one of these comes back. And again, I guess we were just trying to prove some vanity metrics. So we were just trying to prove transaction vanity metrics without realizing, and just to show to obviously this is the first time that we had actually, as founders, we had started a business, as a management team. So we're probably just driven by a lot of vanity metrics to say, hey, this is what we want to show investors. This is the transaction growth, this, that. So, we were spending money and we were doing transactions, but that was not sustainable at all. So,
and what was the model? Were you buying these printers and then reselling, or would you just have partnerships?
Pretty much. We were trying to build our database. We're trying to build our database, and then we had, there were some partnerships, but effectively, initially we were leading with hardware because they were the highest transactions.
Because that's pretty different, like from a business model than like a Groupon, which just like kind of partners and it takes a little share and kind of no risk on, sell through or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, in the early days, there was an inventory Actually, we were not holding inventory as such. So we had partnerships where we were not taking inventory risk or any of that kind of stuff. But the reality was that, you know, it was so competitive, and effectively, even though Amazon is not a group buying platform, but effectively their economies of scale is so high that it effectively becomes a group buying platform, right? So I think that's where we kind of didn't see that coming and said, oh, hang on a second, you call it ultimately whatever the SMB cares about is not that they want to be a part of buying group. They want the best price, and it's very hard to compete on hardware and transactional stuff, especially where there's transparent pricing. Very hard to compete on where there's completely transparent pricing through our model. So we had to.
When you're in product, like you're not in service, like that was the Groupon thing. Was a lot of it was services, so it's different.
That's exactly right, and that's where we did the first pivot, because what we found is that as you were running these campaigns, we were getting a lot of buzz, and our whole position was, hey, this is democratization of buying for SMBs and all that, right? We're giving them the power that the big guys have. So our press story was great, and what we found was that sometimes we started getting companies like Zipcar and Pitney Bowes and said, hey, can you actually help me promote my services? And we're like, okay, we'll negotiate a collective deal, and we will send them to you. And so we moved from products to services as a first pivot, by baptism by fire, as they say. And then basically we found that, on one Zipcar business, if I send them one customer, we made more margin than selling 100 printers, right? And there was no inventory, no hassle. We're like, wow, this is actually quite interesting. Then we started doing like franking machines and all that. And what we had to do very differently back then was that everybody was obviously using Google ads, and they're very, very expensive. We didn't have that kind of money. By this point, we had like 3-4 months of money left in the bank. And
from that first round, from those first like few hundred K that you raised.
Yeah, exactly. So we were like, okay, hang on a second. Okay, so we can't use Google AdWords or any of that kind of stuff. So we had to really be very, very. So we started using Facebook, and back then, no one was actually using Facebook for B2B, right? So we were actually one of the first advertisers for.
That was early. Like this is pre-Facebook IPO, right? Or right around that time?
Actually, no, it's post IPO for sure. But actually, I don't. No, it's definitely post IPO.
I think again, IPO was 2010. Yeah, so you might be right. Yeah, okay.
So it was used for B2C big time, but not B2B. And we and credit to my co-founder, was this incredible marketing experience. He was like, hey, we can't afford PPC, no chance, right? So Zipcar can do their own PPC, but we're gonna try to promote this on social. So we started coming up with these B2C like social ads, and no one ever thought that you could do it. But it started working. We started promoting franking machines, Pitney Bowes franking machines on Facebook. And we're like, oh my God, there's a market for this. And because the SMBs, micro SMBs behave like consumers, right? So they were on Facebook, and our cost per click was, oh my God, it was so low. We're talking about cents to the dollar. And we were talking 2012. So this is where we like, oh wow, this is quite interesting. And that actually, this whole, the move towards collective services helped us, but applying B2C social strategies for B2B acquisition. Actually, Facebook also featured us in one of their first case studies in the UK for B2B, and that was way back when. So I think that the fact that we didn't have the money made us really go innovate and push harder than anyone else would have, and help us crack this B2C driven model for selling B2B services. That was kind of the first pivot for the business.
And sorry, I have to ask maybe a stupid question, but what's a franking machine, dude? I have no idea.
Franking machine? Franking, yeah. So franking machine is, those meters that, Pitney Bowes, I don't know if you know them. So they're a 150-year-old American company where they, instead of putting stamps, a lot of businesses will use a franking machine to stamp the envelope and then ship it. So it's
I can remember last time I wrote something with this pen that I'm holding. You know what I mean? So let alone put stamps on something.
Yeah, exactly. But I think really, So anyhow, it's a pretty good business, and it's a very good business model.
And so, but you were selling these machines or service associated
services? Yeah, we were just generating leads for them. So we were basically just say, hey, here's a special franking machine offer. So a lot of e-commerce merchants use franking machines to ship products. So like all the eBay guys, so we would run ads and say, hey, here's a special offer, collective buying offer. Here's the link, go redeem that offer. and we get a cut every time a transaction takes place with a supplier. But we were negotiating that collective offer, but we're not physically selling anything. We were just sending the leads.
You're selling leads. So that was the difference between that and printers, where in printers you were actually selling the item.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were taking payment. Here we're not taking payment. We're packaging everything as a free offer. It's a special 3 months free, blah blah. But we're not basically using the power of collective buying to generate high quality leads at a special discount to the supplier.
And how did you do the collective? Like, if you're just doing Facebook, then and one SMB sees it, can they, like, how are they part of? Because in Groupon, like, until 100 people buy it, it's not,
Yeah,
activated.
we
Like,
had
was it
some
similar?
of those trigger. Yeah, we had some of those triggers in there initially, but to be honest, by the end, our brand was well known for collective buying, so we didn't necessarily need to have triggers at that point in time. And later, we started off with the triggers, but at one point we didn't need that activation of triggers.
Because everybody knew that was the idea. It was all about collective.
Yeah, that was the idea. Exactly. So that was our kind of first pivot, and that actually got us, to over $1 million, $1.5 million in revenue.
Just off leads, like basically mainly just selling leads.
Yeah. And that was basically, we were running 70% plus gross margin, and it was very profitable. But we didn't really leave our jobs to create a lead generation ad agency type
It
business.
was basically a
In
Facebook ad agency. Yeah.
effectively, right? But we were also very, at that point, we just didn't want to go back to investors and like VCs and all that to raise another round. We were just like, hey, whatever we do, we're gonna power on with our own profits and all that kind of stuff. And one
Did
of
you
the things
become
that,
profitable on that model?
yeah, we were sitting on about probably about $750,000 profit, and or something like that, right? We're sitting like, okay, hey, what do we do? Like, we're like, this is we cannot do this. This is not our business. We're techies. We are not here. But we said, okay, well, look, we're selling all these leads to these companies, and they're creating recurring revenue businesses. So why don't we create like a recurring revenue business out of this? And like, why do we send leads to others so that they're creating recurring revenue business? So we said, okay, what kind of recurring revenue business can we create? So then we basically try to create like a Costco-like model for business services. So we call it like the Huddle by Gold Card, and we said, okay, we'll give you this membership option where we can bundle these products and services together at a great rate, and you pay us like $150, $200 a year or something like that. So we said, okay, that could be our recurring revenue model, because we're very good at driving conversion from Facebook at low cost. So we created this new service. We were like, okay, hey, Costco works really well. What if we create like a Costco for business services, but it was a subscription pricing, and we could do it directly, and we could also offer it to brands.
And so the idea, just to simplify, so a business would pay, let's say, $200 a month, and they would get access to what?
So £200, actually $250 a year. So very, very cheap.
A year. Sorry,
right?
a year. Okay.
Yeah, a year. So they would get things like, they could get free office space for X days a year. They could get free Google Maps SEO listing, blah blah blah. So we combine preferential discount at Apple. So there's some discounts, but also some absolutely free things.
And for the partners, for them, it was kind of a way to just generate leads that's cheaper than Google Ads.
Exactly,
something
lower
like
cost of acquisition. So we just say, hey, what's your cost of acquisition? Let's roll it into the deal. And so that's where we'd always look at a cost of acquisition and say, hey, how much does it take you to acquire a customer? Okay, Zipcar costs you £300. Okay, let's make the first year membership free. And so that was basically the model we were operating towards. So that's where we said, okay, this is great. We've got this cash, but we can't keep generating leads. This is a bit soul destroying. So let's create a business, recurring revenue business out of this. So that's what we kind of tried. And so we created this product, we did amazingly well for 2-3 months. And then what happened is that our cost of acquisition was primarily driven by Facebook, because Facebook was very cheap then. No one was using it. I don't know what happened. Was it 2013 or something like that? I don't know what happened. Oh, I think 2014. But Facebook's costs went up 6x in 3 months, like literally. And we're like, oh my God, this is not. there's no. I mean, the CAC LTV will be brutal. Like, they love our product, but they'll never pay more than $200.
This is the upside and downside. Like when you find one channel that really works, you have to go all in on it. But at the same time, it's so precarious, and you're constantly. I'm assuming before this happened, you already had that worry. You and your founders, like, if this ever changed, like this is just such a crucial point of dependency, right? Like if Facebook ever gets more expensive, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, we were expecting it to get more expensive. We just didn't expect such a sharp ramp up
6x. Yeah, right.
so quickly. So that just basically said. But then the other thing, when we had started this business, this whole model, we had actually two prongs to it. One was going direct. The other was white labeling it. So so we said, okay, this whole model, which is like, this is your Costco like services model, we could take it to telcos, payment companies who had big SMB customers, almost create a loyalty proposition out of it. So the direct model didn't actually work, but the loyalty proposition worked really well. So we had some big energy companies who have a commoditized product, no differentiation. So they started paying us a lot of money to offer the same product under their brand.
And so and for them, it's what, like, let's say telcos, like you're opening up an SMB, you want, internet. Well, if you sign up with us, you also get,
Get
access
all
to
this package. Exactly. So it's a package, right? So it's like, like Amazon Prime bundles and all these services that you get. So we were almost creating like Amazon membership clubs for these, for payment companies, or basically commoditized products. There's no differentiation, right? So they're trying to say shine in any way they can. So the same product we wrapped in, and it got surprisingly, and then we don't have to pay for acquisition. It becomes effectively a licensed business where someone is paying us a fee to run their kind of SMB loyalty kind of programs and all that kind of stuff.
How did you make, one question I have about partnerships, because it's always the challenging part, is like when you're these are big companies, utilities, telcos, like these are not like little companies or massive companies. And whenever you try to partner with them as a startup, there's always this, look, you always, and I hear this all the time, right? Like, oh, I have a partnership with, I don't know, Microsoft, like name your favorite company. And it's like, yeah, in theory, if like all their salespeople started pushing it, like it would be amazing. And the reality usually is crickets, because like oftentimes from their vantage point, it's like, why am I going to push this thing? Like I've got a million other things I could push. You don't have any proof points. How did you manage to like make it work?
Yeah, so we kind of we had a hypothesis, like we were again testing it, right? Like we're testing this direct hypothesis, obviously with our direct product, and we said, hey, look, we had seen some models, equivalent models, so there were established models in the consumer world, right? Like where O2 is one of our big operators here, and yeah, or when consumer telcos would offer like a member benefits, right? Or Amex would have, hey, my gold card privileges. So the consumer world, we knew it worked, right? And we were just trying to say, hey, can we take that hypothesis and apply it to the B2B world? So basically, we just, we we try to package it in the right way. Our hypothesis did land. We got positive responses. I got the CEO of the biggest energy company to respond to me in a cold email, which was pretty remarkable, because I think in the UK, which is, British gas business, which is multi-billion, it was a targeted email. When someone gets back to you, that means, oh, hey, you've actually nailed their problem. Right now, they didn't necessarily become our biggest customer, but we said, okay, so there's no effectively, so first you have to have the right hypothesis, right? And then I think, yeah, I didn't know anybody. We did just outbound, try to, usual, get network, and then you have to go through a pilot phase, right? So we did some pilots, but it did take a long time, and to like in the scheme of things with some of the customers to land, and so yeah, that gave us basically a few million in revenue.
But it took time. Like how did you fund it through that? Because like your lead gen business is kind of gone, no?
Yeah, no, actually, so lead gen was running. There was a cash. So we had like, we got our first deals in a year, and big chunky deals in year two. And one of the things that, so yeah, we used the cash from the previous lead gen business to actually fund this new development. And then we started doing pilots, which were paid pilots. So we were getting cash, and we were a very lean team. So we were very small.
And the deals with these, like, let's take this utility or whoever it was, they would prepay upfront, or it was just like when they sell a membership, you get a cut and they get a cut, like a rev share?
No, it was a bundled deal. So we didn't rely on them to sell anything. So it was our loyalty program. So we're selling hundreds of thousands of licenses, so yeah, we were not relying to sell, and I would not rely on as a startup, relying on a big enterprise to sell your product, as you said
That's what I was
early
asking. So
on,
it was actually not really a partner. It was more of a customer. Like for you, from your vantage point as a customer.
it was exactly a customer. So we reselling, yeah, it's very, very risky, for a startup, unless you are, maybe OpenAI or whatever. But it's quite risky. So yeah, it was effectively, they did a pilot with us. They did a small pilot. They saw the results. They felt, hey, this could improve my retention. This could improve my conversion. Small pilot, 3 months. And if you hit the right pain point and the person really has that pain point, and as a commercial person on the other end, like in our case, if they were all CMOs or lower down the chain or has a retention, they will run a pilot if you make it easy for them. And they saw the results, and that allowed them to scale up. So that allowed us to fund. And again, we generated significant revenue through this exercise. But at the same time, when we launched these people, one of the biggest asks they had was, okay, hey, it's great you're giving me these benefits. Can I give these benefits to my employees? So that's where kind of our third pivot came. We had so many of these people we were launching. They said, hey, I love what you're giving me. Can I give them to my employees? Can I give them to my employees? So that point is, I think, hey, this is quite interesting. And, so many people asking us to give their benefits to their employees, all SMBs. And that's when we launched Perkbox as a initial test. Again, because we were so good on social in running campaigns. So Facebook had become expensive, but instead of selling $200 annual licenses, now we had a product we could sell for $2,000 to $5,000. So the unit economics changed, because when you launch employee benefits or perks to your employees, then you're not paying me for one license, you're paying me 20 licenses or 30 licenses, right?
And the test there was selling these like Perkbox, like employee benefits to SMBs, but through Facebook.
Yeah, 100%. Again, using the B2C social strategies, because again, PPC came later. There was probably a bit of PPC, but most of it was, again, using B2C social strategies. So because we were so good at that, we learned how to do it, how to use visuals. And still, Facebook was not being used. We're talking like 2015, 2014. We did some outbound as well. We got some responses. So it was a combination of outbound and social. So outbound gave us a response. But when we started running these Facebook campaigns, it was insane. It was like we had people responding like crazy. And that's when you start feeling like employees tagging their managers, because sometimes in SMBs, employees have their managers also on social. So it doesn't happen in enterprise, right? Your manager is not, if you're Oracle, your manager is not your Facebook buddy. But in small businesses, it does happen. And so employees start talking to their managers and sharing and all that kind of stuff.
You love this show. You don't want to miss the next episode. Why would you? So hit that follow button. Trust me, it's in your own best interest.
And what, like, I'm curious, like specifically on Facebook, I know it was a long time ago, but like, what were some of the things, like, what were the ads like? Like, what was it that would really resonate? I'm sure it wasn't generic, like employee benefits, like, was there some specific benefit that you tended to push, or something that kind of led to that amount of resonance, to that amount of sharing?
Yeah. So this is, again, my co-founder was leading the charge on this. But we start with their usual, like, hey, Apple at a discount, and, cinema at a discount, things that are very emotional to people, right? So you go to the same cinema and, if we're giving you 50% discount at your favorite cinema, right? So that obviously more emotional, emotive, experiential. So things, the brands that you have a very strong affinity with. And again, these are closed groups, so these are not available publicly. No one can offer you 50% off cinema tickets all year round. There's only employee benefits. So some of those work, food, restaurant, all that. But actually, what's really interesting is that one of the ads, we still don't know why it works so well. They were crazy. Like, it's still the highest performing ad ever, was cupcakes. So the ad was just an image of beautiful images of cupcakes. And if we tried everything, we like, everything the teams tried, and it annoyed a bunch of people, but it just got so many people excited.
What was it like get free cupcakes, like something like that? Was that the kind of tagline, or was
it's just like, I think it was the tagline. I can't remember exactly. Tagline was not necessarily, the imagery was around really, really, these amazing cupcakes, and that was the highest performing ever. 10 years on the business, nothing's outperformed those ads, and they still rerun
How long
it.
were you able to run it for? Like, did it kind of have its moment and then died out, or was it?
Yeah,
did it keep
yeah,
it for,
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
no, it was, and then it comes back, and then ice cream. And nothing new. We don't have ice cream discounts or anything like that. But it was just these crazy, and that's the whole point of like testing, right? Like I was like, this is not gonna work. I was the guy who was saying, why was this gonna work? Why are we not going more on point? They were like, look at the data. I was like, wow, it's
Well,
crazy.
you know, it reminds me, I had a few years ago, I had Derek, the founder of Drop, which is also a mobile rewards app in Canada, back from that same era. And I asked him that question. And he said the number one most best performing ad for him was like the junior chicken, the McDonald's junior chicken, the chicken burger, like that, just like free junior, like sign up, get a free junior chicken. And just like, you know, through the roof, something about obviously something in that era as well that worked, but like this mix of something everybody knows and wants, easy to share. You could think about like every single one of your friends would probably want that. You just kind of comment, like, share, whatever. Like it just drove crazy virality, but it's so surprising the sort of things, and they change all the time. Like, I don't know what would work best today, but it's to your point, like testing and also finding just a way to keep things super simple. That tends to be the best formula.
Yeah, exactly. Simplicity is the key. So yeah, that's when we started seeing that, something that we had never seen before in terms of response rates on ads, calendar booked. We had one point we were getting about 5,000 inbound leads every month, and as we ramped it up from a few hundred to, a few thousand, we went from salespeople, we went from, I don't know, 5 to about 60 in the course of 18 months. And again, we had not raised money.
Saying 5 to 60 salespeople?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So in that time frame,
Because they're
again,
big
that was
contracts too. Like you said, 2 to 5,000 per employee per year.
No. Sorry, that was per company, right?
Okay,
So
per company. Okay.
What was unique was that we were targeting this micro SME segment that no one had touched, right? So there were tons of providers for all the big companies, or if you're a few thousand employees. But if you're like 10 to 50, no one was touching you, right? And because the go-to-market model was so expensive, no one's going to do outbound on $1,000 deal, right? But because of Facebook, it was incoming, inbound, and that was basically the salespeople. Their calendars was stacked. We didn't have an outbound SDR because we didn't need to, and we didn't even know what that means. It's only when we decided to go upmarket, we were like, oh wow, okay, what is this outbound playbook? Right? There was no need because the calendars were stacked, right? We were very, 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 very fortunate, very lucky, because we were using a channel that not everybody used, at that point in time. So
do you
then
remember
we
like
basically,
demo to close rates or something kind of more in the low end of the funnel, like what those ratios would look like?
yeah. So I think the demo to close rates back then were probably on the lower end for us. I think probably around, around 10%, as opposed to being 20%.
Because
But
you
to
had
be
so
honest,
much top of funnel, you had obviously a lot of noise, I would assume, through that.
yeah, there's a lot of noise. Plus, to be honest with you, the focus, our LTV CAC was so amazing that that at that point in time, perhaps, we didn't necessarily have the guidance, perhaps, to focus more on, hey, let's optimize it a better, or for that matter, focus on churn. We were just like ramping so fast. The ARR was ramping so fast. You're like, oh my God, 3-4 years you're struggling. Like, are we gonna survive or not survive? And all of a sudden, you get this ramp up. So perhaps that excitement, we were just in this grow mode, and perhaps you could have slowed down a little bit and looked at, the hey, what is the kind of customer we're getting? How long are they gonna stay for us, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was our kind of final pivot, and then.
But in a sense, that's like, that is product market fit, is where you don't kind of optimize all the stuff around the edges. There's so much demand that things just kind of take care of themselves. And yeah, when you look back, you're like, there's so many low hanging fruit, but you don't even have time to look at those because like there's just flood of inbound.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I think obviously then, so that was kind of the story, and where kind of it grew, and thankfully we were able to, be very, very capital efficient, and then, hence we were able to build a business with less capital than others have raised to get to a point where we got to.
And how quickly, like, walk me through that ramp? Like you said, 5 to 60 salespeople. Like, how quickly did ARR or revenue grow in those 18 months?
if we look at, so there's probably about 60 commercials. So there'll be some CS people in there as well, but predominantly salespeople. I think we probably in 2 years, 2.5 years, we went from maybe I think one or two to about $14 million, something like that, ARR. So it was a pretty rapid exponential kind of curve, because we had this motion that was working very nicely on the acquisition
And is
front
that when
end.
you raised, like once you were kind of at this 14 million?
Yeah. We raised at that point in time, so we raised capital then. And then some of our very early investors wanted a little bit of secondary, so we raised to, I guess, to make sure that they are able to, because they have been in the business for some time by now.
And what did you do like when did you rebrand, and then what did you do with your old businesses?
Yeah, so we at some point the employee engagement business became so big that so when we launched for this employee business, we called it Perkbox, and that was simply because we thought that, hey, when we're launching with a customer, uh, you know, we our old brand was called Huddle Buy, which was a Groupon like business, and then when we launched the employee business, we called it first Huddle Buy Perks, which because it was an extension. And it was very hard. It didn't roll off the tongue. It was pretty complex. And then when we launched it, we actually used to send this box where we threw in some perks in it, like little goodies and all that. And we actually sell physical boxes just for our first customer. They're like, oh, hang on a second, this Huddle by Perks doesn't roll off the tongue. How about we call it Perk Box? And I don't know how it came about. And then I was like, oh, that's actually much easier. So about 2015 early, we kind of rebranded the employee side to the, and actually pretty much the whole business by the end of the year, to Perkbox. We actually had to sunset our customer, the other businesses, 2-3 years down the line. There were some contracts that we needed to commit to, because it was really, really hard to sustain both sides of the business, which were, had different customer bases, different technology stacks, and all that kind of stuff.
And so then, I mean, if we fast forward, you end up growing to like over 30 million in top line. And then I think it was last year that you were acquired for like 170. How did that come about?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like when we were growing fast, that was, very, very good. Obviously, we're excited about it. But then with, obviously COVID, the business did have a bit of a slowdown. So, because, again, because of our chunk of our business was around SMBs and mid-market. So we were growing beautifully. And then as something COVID came along for 2-3 years. So that kind of basically, that meant that our growth rate, had to stabilize, and it didn't.
And why was that? Like, what was the effect? People weren't hiring, like people were still hiring. What was the effect on perks?
I think what we found was that a lot of SMBs were suffering a lot, and then at least in the UK, everything was shut down. So while certain types of businesses grew like crazy, people are not going to either not traveling, they're working from home. So employers saying, hey, I'm not making any revenue. Plus, we have a lot of hospitality type customers, and type customers where they're like, hey, my revenue is shot. So, I can't, or my employees are on furlough and all that. So I can't. So I think that 2-3 years were a bit of a, that really, kind of dampened in terms of growth. We still, grew a little bit and all that, but not perhaps the rate we were growing earlier. And so at that point, the business, obviously having been in the business for some time, we felt that, we want to get the business ready for a transaction in 2025. So the original plan was to do it this year. We brought in a new CEO who has had, actually, he was my biggest competitor. So when I was running the business, we had this competitor, and we used to compete head on. They were the enterprise giants, and we were the SMB mid-market. But obviously, as you do, we built up a great relationship. So last year we brought him into the business because he had moved on from the previous company, which was our biggest company.
Was he was a professional CEO of that other, like he wasn't the founder of that other company?
Yeah, he was a professional CEO, California based, and, been with our competitor was also acquired by a PE firm. So very seasoned, one of the top HR tech execs in our space globally. And obviously we had a great relationship. And, we felt the business was ready for a transaction. We needed someone who has done that before at scale. So we brought him in as the CEO, which he kindly accepted because he knew our business, and he knew what we had managed to do with the business. He loved the brand. And it just goes to show you, like, you always be talking to your enemies. I don't call enemies. No one, everybody is friends here. In that sense, you compete head on, but relationships are so important. So I brought him in last year as the new. Actually, sorry, it was year before last, so in 2023.
2023.
Yeah, I
With the
brought him in.
mandate to, hey, go sell this company.
Yeah, the mandate to go deliver an exit in 2025. However, when he came on board, we got approached by the PE firm, and we felt that it was a very good opportunity. The timing was right, the offer was right, business felt, and so we decided to do that transaction at that point in time.
And when a PE firm comes like that, do they buy like just over 50%? Do they buy all of it? Like leave you with some? What was kind of their playbook?
Yeah, so again, different PE firms operate differently, but most of them are majority buyers, and it really depends on what is their thesis. So if their thesis is to combine two different entities, which is what they've done with Perkbox and another company they bought, which is now Perkbox Wave Up Group, which is actually now serving 4 million people in the UK. So it's the very, very sizable business. So when a PE firm comes in with that thesis where they're going to bring in two businesses, then they are pretty much going to own most of the business with obviously an incentive pool for management. If they're coming in as a growth round investor, then they may do, hey, we'll go in with a little bit more than majority. Rarely do they do minority holdings, which some growth equity PE firms will do minority, but typically they'll always go for majority. And in some cases, either they will take the whole business, or in some cases they'll take a very significant majority, but leave the existing management team in place to run for the next phase of growth if they're not bringing company and do the next round of acquisitions.
But in your case, it was like they bought basically the whole company.
Yeah, they pretty much bought the whole company. Yeah.
And I assume for cash then, since they then kind of just merged it with the other one.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a full cash transaction.
So walk me through that, and especially from an emotional point of view. I mean, you'd been in this for over 10 years and obviously had seen, you'd struggled for that first 3-4 years. It was some sides, it was, and then you kind of really took off. You had the COVID piece. So that's the thing, right? It's always so precarious. When you think you got it, then something else comes in. And then this kind of comes, inbound. What's that feel like as it starts developing? What's it feel like when it really materializes and takes place?
So I think, obviously when it comes in and you've got the term sheet and all that, right? And you're going through that phase of exclusivity, and then you've got the real due diligence happening until the actual contract is signed, right? Anything can happen, right? So you're almost like, hey, obviously there's a lot of time spent on due diligence, with the lawyers, and you're feeding all this information. Obviously, the right PE buyers, something's going to happen. But at this point, anything can happen, right? But obviously, when it does happen, there's a huge sigh of like relief. And you're like, obviously, it's a big emotional, it's, and I can't describe it, right? And it's
were you able to ground yourself through the negotiations, or were you like kind of, you know how it is, like before a big event like that, you have this uncertainty mixed in with what it could mean if it happens, and it's kind of a little hard to fall asleep at night. It's hard to not think about it, like the anxiety all builds in. Or you're the kind of person that just was like even keel, like it happens. If not, it'll happen one day.
Yeah, so. I think I've just been I think when you've gone through all these cycles of turmoil, you're like, hey, what's the worst that can happen, right? So we just said, hey, look, what's the worst that can happen? And they walk away. We're in a very good place. We've got a fantastic management team. They'll come back, or someone else will come back, right? As long as the business is solid, has a good team behind it. So that's how I kind of reason, myself, and I stay grounded. Is like, hey, what's the worst that can happen, right? And then you're pretty much grounded in that, right? And again, as they say, right, you can only control the things that you can control, right? Don't worry about the things you cannot control. So we work damn hard on what you can control and try to improve it, and that's pretty much the best you can do. So I think that's my philosophy, perhaps having gone through so many different, ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, it was good. I mean, we were grounded. The team was grounded as well. The team that was on the negotiating, on our side, and obviously the buyers were very serious. So I think they give us a lot of confidence that, it is gonna happen. But that's how I stayed grounded.
And what about afterwards? What was your like after it happens, where you're like, okay, I'm off. I'm taking like a 1 year hiatus. Were you like ready to build? Like, what's the next move?
Actually, we because I became the chairman of Perkbox when I just before I brought in the new CEO. So I actually have another venture that I've been running for the last few years. So perhaps that helped me stay even more grounded because I started, with at bottom again, right? And so I'm hustling, I'm building, and
What's the new
and so
business?
that so it's called 5minutes.ai. So it's number five, like 5mins.ai. And we're kind of a, AI powered TikTok style training platform. And that was one of my pet peeves when I was building Perkbox. I felt that, to get the team excited about, learning and growing as individuals was very, very hard with a lot of existing systems. And obviously, this is before AI came along. So when we started this, we are looking at, hey, how can we use GPT-2 to make learning much more efficient, effective, and so that's what it's about. How do we democratize, learning and growth for any company, any size? So it's not just the big corporates who can spend a ton of money to train their people. Any company, any size can do that. So that's why we created this 5minutes dot AI. So yeah, so because I'm been working on this, it's been I've stayed grounded and not taken years off because at heart I'm a builder and I really really enjoy building.
What is it that motivates you? Like, what is it that you love about building?
I love solving problems, and I think motivates most. Uh, at least that's what keeps I think a lot of founders, entrepreneurs going, is that you see a problem, you want to solve it, and you want to see the fruits of your work at some point in time, right? So it's that's what really is the motivation. Like, hey, this is the problem, gonna solve it, and the vision of that solution where you're making that impact is the motivation. So you see yourself, okay, 5 years down the line, this is how it's gonna work, and I and my team created this and solved this big pain point for people. Just like we did with Perkbox, before we entered the market, it was very, very hard for SMBs to motivate, to retain their employees, give them the benefits at a very, very low cost. So yeah, that's the motivation, really, the impact you create through the problems you solve.
And is it different on your second one, like especially after a big win? Because I think most founders are builders and they love solving problems, but they also like they really do want that win. Like so once you have that and it's kind of checked off, let's say, and certainly financially like secured for life on that second one, does it feel different than like the early days of Perkbox?
Yeah, I think obviously, as a first time kind of founder, or if you had an exit, but that was perhaps not so great, the financial motivation is obviously very, very high. But when you do a second round around, it's not really about the financial motivation. At least for me, it could be for someone else, but for me, it's not, it's not needed. I don't need to do this. But so that's the positive, that you can really think about the long term, and you're not driven by hey, quarter to quarter or whatnot, but you can really focus on a long term vision. So I think that's one of the key benefits. Obviously, you learn from a lot of your mistakes. That's the other benefit, and so lots of mistakes were made, and this time obviously I'm uber cautious, but at the same time you still make mistakes, right? So I can reflect and say, maybe I was a bit more overconfident than this one. Maybe I should have tested this a bit more. So there's always mistakes, right? It's like I can't. You will always make mistakes, right? But the question is, you make them less and correct much quicker and faster. And the fact that you've done it before helps you play the long game, and you're acutely aware of things. Like as they say, you can never time the market. You just never know what's going to happen in the markets. And once you've gone through that journey, you realize that that is real. You can never time anything. You can just do your best, give it your best shot, keep talking to your customers, keep testing.
Well, that's kind of, we talk a lot about the difference between first time and repeat founders. And of course, everybody makes mistakes. But I think as a repeat founder, hopefully you make less of the avoidable mistakes than your first time around. So listen, this has been great. Let's stop it there. Let me ask the last question. We talked about the product market fit moment. So I don't think you have to go through that. But maybe just in terms of like a piece of advice, especially as you were talking, maybe it's a good segue, like some of the lessons, some of the mistakes. So, when you think about your whole journey with Perkbox and now you're starting your new company, like what's some of the biggest kind of piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's just starting out today?
If I had to kind of pick out a few areas, I think, probably one of the most important things is about being capital efficient and really, really take care of your cash because, obviously, that gives you optionality. The fact that we were able to pivot and all those things is because we were so capital efficient and we had the cash, right? That was there. I think I think a lot of tech in particular, the people, the mission of the culture is perhaps not something top of mind for a lot of people, and we made that mistake in the early days also at Perkbox. But thankfully, we had almost a self-correcting mechanic in our uh, company where there were people who were very, very passionate about it. So, thankfully, very quickly, we really started honing in a lot on the people, mission, and culture piece, which is very, very important regardless of the size of your organization. Celebrating the wins, celebrating the losses, making everybody feel so empowered because, you know, it's you're a small team. One person goes or one person does amazing things, and goes above and beyond, you feel it. So I think that's the second piece. I think that's really, really key. I think again, people talk about it a lot, which is, the focus aspect. So, there's so many opportunities thinking about, hey, how do I really, really kind of focus in on what's the most important thing? And finally, I think for me, one of the things that has been a big, big learning is that, there's a famous saying by, this guy, Sun Tzu, from thousands of years ago. He said, the greatest, from his book, The Art of War, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. So I think that's where, we built such massive like competition, and you go rah, 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 we're going to kill the competition, all that kind of stuff. But hey, if you can enter a market where there's no competition, and that doesn't mean there's no market, right? No competition doesn't mean there's no market. So I think spending a bit more time finding that, finding that, finding that market where there's no competition, or victory which requires no battle is something I don't think we emphasize so much on. But I think that's been my key learning, right? And I'm still working on it. It's like, the greatest victory is where there's no battle is something that I'd encourage a lot of founders and entrepreneurs to think very, very hard about.
Love it. Well, Saurav, thanks so much for sharing the story with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and we'll speak soon.
So guess what? I met this founder who listened to every single episode of the Product Market Fit Show. He just called me and he sold his company for over $1 billion. That's right. If you listen to every episode of the Product Market Fit Show, that's what's going to happen. It's I can't say it's guaranteed, but it's what I've seen. It's what I've seen in the past, but you won't know for sure unless you try it out for yourself. So go back, because there's over 100 episodes of the Product Market Fit Show and you haven't listened to most of them. Check them out.